It's super interesting. And I think this conversation is very poignant for younger women, but I think there's something that shifts when women hit mid to late 30s and they start being
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit less picky. I mean, I think the younger women, at least in my experience that I've gone on dates with and dated and so forth, have this criteria like you said, over 6 feet tall, must make 250 to $300,000 a year, have a nice house, no baby mama. I mean, the list goes on. But as
Mhm.
women get a little bit older, there's almost a sense of, I don't want to say desperation, but they realize that, they have been maybe a little bit too picky. And oftentimes I see women settling because they want to have children and they realize that men of their age bracket are actually dating lower. So, speaking to women specifically to avoid those pitfalls, what advice would you say to them?
The advice that I dispense is never accepted, unfortunately. There's two peaks that men and women hit. Or sorry, men and women hit peaks, but at different stages of their lives, and women hit two peaks, unfortunately. So men usually peak in their mid to late 30s. That's when they're still handsome, they still have the youthful looks, they're not wrinkled, they're not grayed. They're generally at the peak or approaching the peak of their profession and their earning opportunities. Um, that's usually when they're the most valuable to women. Women, on the other hand, are generally most valuable to men in their very early 20s, 22, 23 or so. And this really angers women immensely because they'll argue, oh, that's not true. Look at me. I've got my house, my degrees, my Tesla. And what they're basically describing is a man. They're describing the things that make men attractive. And because they've been told to chase excellence, climb the corporate ladder, put off having a family, get degrees, make money, again, buy the house and the Tesla, all that sort of thing. They're basically doing things that are making them terrible versions of men. Because there's no guy in history that's ever looked at a woman's degree on the wall framed in mahogany and said, "Oh yeah, look at the degree on her. That's real hot." Women are beauty objects to men, and this is confirmed widely, cross culturally, cross continent. It's been studied in depth and agreed by everybody in Evo Psych that if you ask men from around the world and you show them pictures of women in their early 20s all the way up to 70, universally, it doesn't matter where they're from, they almost all select 22, 23. So that's when women peak. But they have to come to the realization that that's real, and they don't. You tell women that today in their 20s, or even if she's 30, for example, she'll get mad at you. She'll call you a misogynist. Who hurt you? You have a little PP. You're bald. Standard sort of stuff that I've heard 1,000 times. But they hit what's called the wall at that phase, which, by the way, isn't a term that I coined. It's a term that women coined, that they stole from sports because they would say an athlete had hit the wall when he couldn't use his arm for pitching anymore, and they'll use it to sort of disqualify their competition, like other younger, more beautiful women. So women start to lose their value around 23. The problem is that they don't come to the realization or the acknowledgement that that exists until they're forced to, when they realize later on in life they're not getting the results that they want, when they realize that men don't really care about their degrees or their careers or their boss babe attitudes. And what they're really looking for is a younger, fertile, prettier, more agreeable type of gal that will be a complement to their life rather than complicate it. So it's a very, very difficult conversation to have because when you talk about these things, you get accused immediately of, spreading hate, which simply isn't true. It's just a statement of facts. And unfortunately, to some people, the facts sound like hate to people that hate the facts.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. But what I think from the female's perspective, they're saying there's not enough quality men out there. I mean, just to play
Mhm.
devil's advocate. So I would like to just kind of bounce that idea back and forth because I think, and there is, I would say, a dearth of quality men. Most men, and I think it's because the high quality men have increasing optionality in the sexual
Mhm.
marketplace. So they don't really want to commit to any one woman, especially if there is baggage and things like that. So what
Yeah.
would you say to that argument?
They're usually saying that when they approach their 30s and they realize that they've gotten out of school, they've got their job, they're making good money, they're able to do their girls' trips with their girlfriends, travel, they've got the car they want. They need a man like a fish needs a bicycle sort of thing. And then they start to realize, well, I need a man for a family. And then they start looking for a good man that's also good at being a man to, become their husband and raise children with. And they're finding that the guys that they're dating are only entertaining them as options because they have options, because they're older, they're more successful. They don't generally settle for just one woman if they're top shelf guy, like a high value guy, a 10 out of 10 sort of guy. So they look around and they find these guys that don't want to commit to them, or they'll find guys that are out there that want to commit to them, but they're not attracted to because they're not at their level. So this is the problem that you end up with when you put women in the workforce, give them degrees, they climb the corporate ladder, they're making well into six figures, they're making very good money. Because again, like I said earlier, women are hypergamous. They date across and up on the socioeconomic scale. So as they rise that scale and they become more successful and wealthy, they take a look around and they're like, look at me, I'm hot. My girlfriends say I'm hot. I've got a great life. I got my wine nights. My dog is well trained. Everything's great in my life. But why can't I find a guy? And it's like, because most of the guys that you're looking at, you generally have options and they don't want to commit to you, or maybe you even passed up on them, several years ago while they were doing the work and you didn't want to, wait for them to get to that point, sort of thing. So there's a number, again, this is a big puzzle with many, many pieces. So you can't really say it's this one piece that's the problem. But when women put it like prioritizing family, they age themselves out of the dating market. Their sexual market value starts to drop. Men know that women don't share their pot of gold with them. So we don't see success in women generally as attractive. We see beauty, curves, femininity, breast, hips, waist, ratio, long flowing hair, clear skin. We see those things as attractive and feminine cues that we're interested in. Women just don't get that they've basically turned themselves into men. They're trying to sell to men what it is that men are selling to women, and they don't understand that men aren't attracted to what is basically now the boss girl. All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.